Pontiac presents How Much for My Car? Yes, what can a salesman say when a prospect comes in and asks,
How much will you give me for my car?
let's see how successful Pontiac salesmen handle this question. A national survey shows that they have many different answers, but here is the basic strategy. They take control of the interview so they will be able to put themselves in their proper role of selling the new Pontiac rather than buying the prospect's used car. To do this, they try to delay giving a final figure until after they've had a chance to do some qualifying and selling. They say that the prospect who asks how much may actually be thinking something quite different. For instance,
How much for my car?
Can I afford this Pontiac?
How much for my car?
Will this place treat me right?
How much for my car?
I'm gonna beat this guy down to the last penny.
and many salesmen say that the prospect who won't wait for a factual appraisal would probably not be profitable to deal with anyway. But exactly what do top Pontiac salesmen say to get control of the interview? Let's see some examples of methods used by salesmen all over the country.
How much will you give me for my car?
Well, that depends on several things. The make and model of your car and which Pontiac model you decide to buy.
Well, I've got a 51 Chevrolet.
Fine. We'll be able to give you top value on it. But to figure out the best deal, we have to know which Pontiac suits you best. You can buy a beautiful new Pontiac for just a little more than the lowest priced cars. So let's go over and take a look at some of the...
Here, the salesman quickly made the prospect feel that the allowance would be a good one and that Pontiac was in the right price range for him. This set his mind at ease and permitted the salesman to sell Pontiac. Now let's look at another example.
Tell me one thing, mister. How much will you give me for my car?
Well, don't you really want to know how much you'll have to pay for a new Pontiac after our top dollar allowance on your car has been figured?
Well, I guess so.
You're going to be pleasantly surprised when you see our allowance. Our dealership is interested in giving you the best possible deal on the new Pontiac you select.
Good.
So let's pick out the Pontiac you want. While we're taking a ride in the new car, we'll have our appraiser check your car carefully. You can be sure that you're going to get...
This is one way to get the prospect to commit himself that he's ready to buy a new car. Then the salesman can have an appraisal made while he's selling and demonstrating. Here's another situation.
All I want to know is, how much for my car? She's a beauty, let me tell you. 52 Ford with special carburetors and exhaust, and not a scratch on her.
You certainly came to the right place, because we're short on that particular model right now, and I know we can give you top dollar on it.
You know, that car's only got 22,000 miles on it, and I've never had a minute's trouble with it.
Your car must be in wonderful condition. I'll be sure to give that information to our appraiser and tell him to go for the top dollar on it.
Okay.
So let's decide which Pontiac you want. Then we can have your car appraised so I can get the very best deal for you. What body style did you have in mind?
Here, the salesman put the prospect's mind at ease on the trade-in so he'd listen to a sales presentation. Now let's look at another situation.
I'm mainly interested in how much you'll allow me for my car.
Why, of course you are. And you'll get the best deal in town right here. But it would be very much to your advantage to think first about which Pontiac you want.
How come?
Because the cost of a new Pontiac varies according to which series and which equipment you want. And this has a lot to do with the allowance you get. Your allowance will be based on a careful consideration of the price of the new car and the appraisal. In the long run, you'll get the best deal this way. You can see how that would work, can't you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Here, the salesman, in a straightforward way, steered the conversation away from the allowance and toward Pontiac. In just a moment, we'll see a different method after the record is changed.
The first thing I want to know is, how much will you give me for my car?
Well, I can give you a range figure right now if you wish.
A range figure?
Yes, the most and the least your car would bring in today's market. Later on, of course, we'll have your car carefully appraised so we can give you the highest possible allowance on it.
But my car's worth so much, regardless, isn't it? Can't you give me a definite offer right now?
Yes, I can. But if we know which model Pontiac you like we might be able to go a little higher on the allowance. So let's take a look at this model over here and get a better idea of which Pontiac would suit you best.
Here, the salesman took the pressure off by immediately offering a range figure and quickly getting the prospect thinking about Pontiac. Here's another case.
I'm not going to buy until I know how much you'll give me for my car. That's the important thing.
You bet your life it's an important thing. After all, trading in your car is a big decision.
Certainly is.
And I'm sure you'll agree that choosing the right new car is even more important. You want the most you can get for your money. Isn't that true?
That's right.
Once we know which new Pontiac you want, we'll be in a better position to appraise your car and allow you top dollar on it. You have a wide choice of Pontiacs to choose from.
Here, the salesman made the prospect see that the first and most important step is to choose the new Pontiac. Now let's listen in on a different conversation.
All I want to know is how much for my car on a Star Chief Catalina. That's my Mercury there at the curb. I haven't got much time.
Well, let us make a factual appraisal. And if you have to keep an appointment someplace, I'd be glad to take you there in my Star Chief.
No. I'll stay right here. Besides, I've driven my brother-in-law's Star Chief, know all about it. All I want to know is how much you'll give me for my car.
Well, a car like yours brings all the way from $1,200 to $1,700, depending on its condition.
$100 more than any offer I've had. This may be the place.
So let's go for the top figure on your car by giving it a thorough appraisal and finding out which Pontiac you prefer, okay?
Well, if it won't take too long.
Here, the salesman used an extra high figure to stop the shopper. This gave the salesman a chance to get an appraisal and to do some selling. Now let's take a look at a different situation.
I only want to know this. How much will you give me for my car?
Well, that depends on the make and model of your car and which Pontiac you want.
Wait a second now. I don't want any sales talk. All the new cars are good these days. I'm going to buy from the place where I can get the best deal.
Yes, almost all the new cars are good. But the best way to get the most for your money is to know exactly what you're buying, isn't that right? You wouldn't buy a pair of shoes without trying them on, would you?
No.
Well, it's a good idea to know what you're buying in a new car, too. We have the best buy on the American market today because Pontiac gives you more automobile value per dollar than any other make. And don't you worry about getting the most for your car either. Our dealership has a reputation for giving the top dollar on trade-ins. So let's see what Pontiac you want.
This prospect originally wanted a figure for shopping purposes only, but the salesman persuaded him to get better acquainted with the value of Pontiac. Now for another example.
What's the best you can do in money difference between my car and the lowest price Pontiac?
I'll have an appraisal made and do my best to get the least possible dollar difference for you. And while we're getting that appraisal, let's decide exactly which Pontiac you want, because that will have a definite bearing on the allowance. Then I'll show you how little it will cost you to own a new Pontiac.
Okay, but before we go any further, tell me this. Will your figure be firm, or will it be $100 higher if and when I buy?
When we make a proposition, we stick to it, unless you hold off so long that the used car market changes. And the best way for you to protect yourself there is to make a small deposit and let us write up an order on the Pontiac you want. Incidentally, why do you ask that question?
I'll tell you why. A week ago, I went shopping for a new car and signed a contract with the dealership that gave me the best offer. But when I went back to close the deal, they knocked $100 off their allowance. That burns me.
I don't blame you. They probably gave you a high figure just to get you to come back. But if we take a signed order to the boss with a small deposit, he'll hold it for a solid week. So let's start by looking at...
There's a prospect on the rebound from a high ball. This type is a good catch for a salesman who can inspire confidence in himself and his dealership. Yes, there are all types of prospects who ask, how much? And we've heard several good answers which can increase your chances of closing a profitable deal. You may already use some of these answers, and you may use others as well. What are the best ways you have found to answer the prospect who says,
All I want to know is how much for my car.